Welcome to the Faith and Wellness Navigating Healthcare for Catholic Women. We're going to get started here, but if you're new here, my name is Nicole Haugen. I've been a nurse for over 14 years. I've been married to my husband, Will, for 14 years, and we have 6 children. So I just want to share information with you guys today to help you when you go to the doctors to not feel so anxious or nervous and less judged about your faith. And I'm feeling a little bit sassy today. I got my red lipstick on. So we're going to begin with prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit. Thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for our families. Thank you for our friends. Thank you for all the many blessings you give us. Please be with us and comfort us as we feel afraid or anxious or judged for our faith, especially when we go to the doctors. We look to these men and women to help us, to guide us through things that we don't necessarily understand. And we often feel rejected or betrayed by them. We know that you also were rejected and betrayed by those that were near and dear to you or that you trusted. So we ask you to unite our suffering with yours. And we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So, like I said, my name is Nicole Haugen, and I like to do webinars that are free just to give everybody information. And I also have a passion, obviously, for healthcare since I am a nurse. But I also have a passion for women who go to the doctor and feel confused or overwhelmed or don't necessarily know the things they can refuse or say no to. And so I have a passion for that. And I just want to share that information with as many Catholic women as I possibly can. And so back when I had baby number 3, I had 3 children within 3 years and no twins in there. And we were bringing our 3rd child in for a checkup, and she was due for immunizations. And so we don't get all the immunizations, but we do get most of them. And she was overdue for a lot of them. And the nurse said, "Oh, we should just give them all." And I didn't want to. I felt horrible. I felt like she was pushing me into taking them all. I kept saying, "No, we don't want that many." And she's like, then she listed off the whole reason why we need to and how important they are. And of course, being a nurse, like, yes, I agree with some of that, but not everything. And she just kept pushing it. Well, then she left the room and to go get them ready. And the doctor came in, and then, the doctor left. So the nurses could come give the immunizations. And the other nurse that came in so they could administer, shots in this leg and shots in this leg for the baby. And the other nurse, I'm like, "Well, how many are we giving?" And the other nurse was like, "Do you not want to give all of them?" And that's fine. And I was like, "No, I don't." And the nurse that had been in to do the admission intake was like, "Well, I already filled them. You need to do it." It's like, I felt trapped. I felt cornered. My heart started racing. I felt like I was going to cry because I don't want my child, what if this affects her negatively? What if it affects her negatively for the rest of her life? And my husband was there and he was like, "It'll be fine. She can handle it. It'll be okay." And then I felt even worse because I felt betrayed by him. And I was just a mess. And then, so they gave her all these immunizations. And afterwards, she cried and cried for days. Like, she had a fever. She, this poor little baby was maybe 6-8 months old, and she had a lump, especially on the one leg, a lump that lasted multiple months. And every time I looked at it and felt it on her poor little leg, I just felt horrible, and I felt so guilty. And I should have stood up for her more. I should have defended her. And since that day, I've realized I'm probably not the only person that this happens to. And so I want to give you guys the tools and the knowledge on how to handle this differently and maybe better than I did. So Again, we're navigating healthcare like Catholic women. So when you and your children go to the doctors, you probably feel judged, annoyed, nervous, anxious, all of the above, and even more. And this is all normal, right? This is all normal because our primitive brain says that the doctor is a tiger and we need to hide, we need to take shelter, and it's scary. And so our primitive brain is primitive, right? And so we have to train it to not take it for face value. You're going to have an initial response, but then what you want to do is to process through that. Okay, so that's what I'm going to teach you today. So we're going to go kind of through an example. Okay, so you get triggered by something when you go to the doctor and you have thoughts about that. Then you have a feeling, which is normally bad feeling. It feels horrible. And then you try to avoid, resist, or you react. And so then when you go to the doctor again, you're trying to avoid, resist, or react before you even go. You go and you are even more triggered. There's a tiger. Then you have even more thoughts about it. You feel even worse, and it all keeps happening. It just keeps cycling through. And so, for one of the examples, is if the midwife says, when you're pregnant again, maybe you have 3 little kids and you're pregnant with your 4th one, and your midwife says, "Oh, don't you watch TV?" You're triggered by that. Your brain says, "This is dangerous. You need to run, hide, resist this," right? And you have the thought, like, how dare she? Okay, you feel angry. And so you might react. All right. And then the next time you go, you're even more triggered. Whatever people say, you take even more defensively. And same thing happens. You react. All right. So we're gonna get over this cycle. So before you go to the doctor, what I want you to do is I want you to write down all of your thoughts. So I just wrote down a few of mine, right? So there'll be comments about how many kids I have. When I ask questions about immunizations, they will think I'm crazy. They're going to exchange looks as healthcare providers, the doctor, the nurse, and etc. I'll get lectured about immunizations. I'll be lectured about birth control. When I'm pregnant, I have to refuse the amniocentesis over and over again, right? It's not enough that I just refuse it once. They're going to keep pushing it. They're going to keep pushing birth control. I have to refuse that multiple times. And then I have to explain the same thing, right? The nurse asks the same questions. The doctor then has the same questions. And every time you go, you have to say the same things over and over again. When my teenagers get older, they're going to get coerced into doing something that goes against our faith or things that can be expensive that we don't want. And for 2, it is expensive just to go to the doctor. Especially when I don't feel heard by my provider and I'm judged and misunderstood. And I live in a very rural area, so I don't have a lot of options. I don't have the option to just go to a different doctor. We have a handful of doctors and it is what it is. So all of these things we think are just facts. These are the facts that my doctor is judging me, that it is expensive. I'm for sure misunderstood. I'm going to get lectured. I'm going to get comments. But really, those aren't facts. Those are your thoughts. And so when I got certified as a life coach, I went through the life coach school, and Brooke Castillo teaches the model. So the model is you have 5 things. You have your circumstances, you have your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and then your results. So your circumstance is the facts. And we can list out. So let's say you're going to go to the doctor on Thursday at 9 a.m. Okay, that is a fact. And you can even list your doctor's names. 10 a.m. And you can maybe even say it's a general checkup. Okay. And maybe it's a pap smear. Okay. General checkup with pap smear. Okay. And I have a thought about that. Our thoughts are the sentences that go through our brain when we think about this circumstance. So sometimes they can happen so quickly that you don't even know that they're happening. But when I think of this, so I just had this done recently. I went to go get a pap smear, and then I thought they're going to talk about birth control. And in fact, I really tell myself they're going to push birth control. And then your feeling is an emotion you have. It's not a, it's, we're not talking about like pain sensations, like if you burn your hand, we're talking emotional feelings. And it's caused by a vibration in our body. And you're going to just choose one. So when I think they will push birth control, I feel anxious. I feel nervous. I feel a little bit frustrated. But my main thing is I feel nervous. And then when I'm nervous, we do things or we don't do things, right? We take action or we have inaction based on the feeling that we have. So when I'm nervous, and it can either be subtle or it can be really obvious. So when I'm nervous, I will probably wait till the last minute to leave. Then I'm rushing around, trying to get out the door. I might be speeding on the way there. I might go through, I'll have all these thoughts about like, oh, they're going to do this and they're going to do this, right? So I ruminate on all these thoughts that haven't happened, by the way, and all these circumstances that haven't happened yet. Okay. Um, when I get there, like when I'm sitting in the room, like I feel nervous. I'm like not sure how I should handle myself. So I question myself a lot. I also get kind of defensive. Like if they bring up anything that I don't like or don't want to hear, I'll either get really like quiet and I won't say anything, or I get defensive. Okay. So we're just going to say it's defensive. Okay. And all of these actions, they haven't even pushed the birth control, but in my mind, I'm already pushing myself, right? I'm putting myself in that spot. I'm pushing myself on the birth control and how much I need to avoid the topic, not talk about it, right? And so all of this is to show how much our results that we get come from our thoughts. If I had a different thought, I would have different feelings, different actions, and I would get a different result. Let's say when I go into the doctor, I really want to feel peace. Okay. Yeah, they're going to say something about birth control, but it's really not the big a deal. I know they do it every time. I know that that's what they talk about. I know that that's when they learned at school. That's what they is pushed on them. And so then that's what they push on their patients. And I know that because I have been in nursing school. I have been on the flip side of that. I know that when you talk about natural family planning, it's a little paragraph like this in the textbook, and birth control options are pages and pages. So I just know that's how it is. But not everybody knows that, right? They think the doctor shouldn't be doing this. They think that the doctor should understand our natural family planning, and that they should have the information. They should know how beneficial it is. They should know that it's 99% effective, and which is more effective than most birth controls. So we go in thinking the doctor should know this, right? And we're frustrated, and then we get upset, and we're resisting the reality is that they don't know this, they weren't taught this, they weren't educated on this, right? And we think they shouldn't be doing this, but really we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be angry, we shouldn't be frustrated. So I want you to then allow this feeling of nervous, and I want you to sit with that. And I want you to then slip into like, okay, they don't have this information. For me, that makes me feel compassion for them. Compassion that they don't have all the knowledge, that they can treat all of their patients in the way that's best for them, right? Because they're just human. They can't possibly know everything about everything. So that makes me just have such compassion for them, more understanding. Okay, I don't get frustrated or nervous. I just see the reality of the world and what a broken world it is, and how it's not that big a deal. I have those tools. I've educated myself on natural family planning. I know the benefits of it. Okay, so let's slip into a different thought that then you can practice before you go to the doctor. So, your circumstance, so we're going to pick out the facts, right? You're going to go to the doctor, do a doctor appointment on Thursday at 10 a.m. And it's a checkup with Pat. Okay. And if you just have such compassion for them, you have such compassion for them to think they're just human, right? They're doing the best they can. It's okay. The reality is they don't have all the tools because no human does. Okay. I'm just even making gonna say they are human. And I have such compassion. And then it leads me to take action of, for one, I won't speed, right? I'll leave the door a little bit sooner, maybe depending on how the kids are and all the things, right? But I will leave with plenty of time because I'm not avoiding it. Maybe I'll even go and like get a coffee to sip on while I wait. And then when I'm in the room, I'll just take the time, I'll be patient. When they say comments, if the nurse says a comment of like, oh, like, all of these things, right? Oh, how many kids do you have? Do you know how that works? Don't you ever watch TV? All the comments, okay? We get a lot of comments. We have all girls, and so everybody's like, "Oh, you gonna try for a boy?" Like, and I used to get really upset by that. Like they meant like girls are bad. But I know that it's just people being human and they just feel like they need to comment on everything. So I'll be patient. I won't take things personally. Take things personally. And then I might even, if a doctor says something about natural family planning, I might even like use that time to educate. Because just like if you had a chronic illness and your doctor, maybe you have a new doctor and they have never seen your case before, they don't have the information, you would go in and you would use that time to educate them and to inform them on all the things that they've had. I know as a nurse, I've gone into situations where like there's so many different types of cancer. Like you can't possibly know all the different types of cancers and be an expert on them. And so I would go to a patient's home and they would tell me the type of cancer that they have. And I'd be like, oh, I've never heard of that. And they'd be like, yeah, most people have it. And then they would just educate me on it, what it means, how it shows up for them. Right. But they're so relaxed and calm. They don't take it like a personal attack on them. And I say, like, as Catholic women, we often feel like it's a personal attack on us. It's a personal attack on our faith. It's a personal attack on how much we're failing. Okay. And so when you have these actions, you have plenty of time, you get a coffee, you're patient, you don't take things personally, maybe you even educate the doctor. Your result is you are human, right? You show up as a human. You don't show up as an angry mob with the pitchfork because they don't know what you practice and what you believe. You just show up as human. Okay. So I'm going to run through a few more examples. I do see some questions here about things. And if you have questions, you can either put them in the chat box or you can put them in the Q&A. In the Q&A, I believe there's a choice if you want to be anonymous with them. But I will go on. Okay, so let's say this. The doctor is pushing for a vasectomy for husband. You have multiple kids. Husband has expressed not wanting any more. And you're wondering how you can support him. You want him to refuse. As Catholics, we know that anytime that you engage in the marital act, you want to be open to life, right? And that's what natural family planning is. That's when you have windows where you abstain so you don't get pregnant, and then windows where you don't have to abstain. So then, based off of your cycle, then you won't get pregnant. Okay. And so with vasectomies, we know that as Catholics, like that's morally wrong because it blocks the ability to be open to life. And so I have known women who their faith maybe is a little bit stronger or deeper, or they even have more understanding of how vasectomies are wrong, go against our faith. I mean, I say wrong as like just because I don't know what other word to use, but really essentially it is wrong with our faith, right? When you're blocking the ability to be open to life, that is causing us to sin. And so I've known women, and also I've heard of women also who their husband just goes and had a vasectomy and they don't tell them. Okay. Because the reality is that they don't have to get our approval. We don't have to get approval for our husband if we want to have an abortion. They don't have to get approval from us if they want to go get a vasectomy. That's just how the healthcare system is set up. That's how laws are now. And so when you think of this, right, when you think of your husband getting a vasectomy, it feels horrible. And even if you know, no, he's a strong Catholic, he's faithful, he would never do that, you have that little panic and fear, right? Because maybe he does want this, especially if he has expressed that he doesn't want to have any more kids. Maybe he does want this. And what does that mean? Is he going to go hide it? Okay. So the first thing, again, is to just allow that feeling in your body. Allow how horrible that feels. Go to the worst possible case scenario and say, okay, he has a friend pick him up. He gets the vasectomy. He doesn't tell me about it. I don't know about it till afterwards. The reversal process is so expensive and he doesn't want it, right? He doesn't want the reversal. There's like he went and he had this done. And that feels horrible, 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 horrible. Shame, guilt, right? Anger. So allow yourself to feel that in your body. Okay, and then let's look at the facts. Okay, the fact for you is it sounds like this hasn't happened yet. And it's just being pushed by the doctor. Okay. And what does pushing even mean? We say, oh, the doctor's pushing it like it's a fact. That's not a fact. That's our opinion. Our opinion is that they're being pushy. Maybe the doctor just mentioned it because he or she mentions it to all of their middle-aged men, because most middle-aged men get vasectomies. That's the reality of the world. So we're so busy trying to resist the reality that we forget to live in the reality. So let's say, doctor, if you know the words, but usually they just say, oh, have you thought of a vasectomy, right? Just like they ask us, oh, have you thought of getting your tubes tied? Okay. So the doctor states to your husband, have you thought of a vasectomy? Okay. And you think, for one, this is horrible. This is awful, right? Like, oh, he might go through with this. Okay. All of those things. But we're going to move on because those are our initial thoughts. We want to think of a thought to have when this comes up again, or how to talk to your husband about it. Okay. So I always like to put in like in my thoughts, I am learning. Okay. So I'm learning to support my husband through this because they also get push vasectomies a lot, just like we get pushed birth control. Okay. So you can have the thought, I am learning to support my husband through this. Like this means, vasectomy talk. Okay. I'm learning to support my husband through this. So when I think that, it feels a little bit more detached. It doesn't feel so personal. I feel calm. I feel a little curious, right? Because I'm learning how to support him. This is a new thing that the doctor started bringing up. He's at this stage in life, just like we want our husbands to support us when we have our period, right? We want them to understand that we're going through a lot. Or maybe you're kind of going through uh, perimenopause or menopause. Like we want to feel understood. And so, how can we show up for our husbands this way as well? So, when I think I'm learning to support my husband through this, I feel curious. Right? We can do this together. And then I will, for one, I'll probably ask him questions. I'll ask my husband where he stands on this. Okay, so we're on the same page. Maybe he is completely no, absolutely not. I would never have that done. Maybe he's like, well, maybe, like, I don't know another way to not have baby after baby after baby. We've had 8 babies, like, we try NFP, it doesn't seem to work, right? So ask him the questions and then listen. Okay. Listen, not to respond, but listen to actually hear. Remember, we're really getting curious. We really understand why he's fearful of that because I know with 6 kids, like I have often felt fearful of that. I have felt like, oh my gosh, like when is there going to be a time where I'm not pregnant? We practice NFP. Why isn't it working? Right? Okay, so he has these concerns as well. We want to be heard. He wants to be heard. Okay. So really listen. And then I like to say, ask follow-up questions. Okay. Because it's easy to, if you're not in a curious place, not asking more questions, it's easy to then get caught up in the defensive mode, right? So even ask more questions. Say why. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that? And then, like repeat back. What I'm hearing you say is this, right? What I'm hearing you say is you're nervous about having more kids. What I'm hearing you say is you want to be intimate with me and you want to enjoy it, but you're nervous. Okay. So repeat back. And then, if you're in the curious mindset, you feel curious, you're learning to support your husband, you can look up information together. Maybe neither of you maybe really understand the church's teachings and why birth control is a moral sin, right? Like, so maybe you just need to go and seek education. Maybe you need to ask for if there's books or resources, right? Maybe you need to visit with your priest and you're going to seek out resources. Okay? In all of these things, all those things, your result will be that you are learning to support your husband. Then, right? Because our thoughts give us the result. Instead of being panicked at the thought of him having a vasectomy and then like pressuring him and badgering him about it and all the things and getting a result you don't want, you probably end up in a fight about it, right? Your thought of I'm learning to support my husband, you'll get the result of you are learning to support your husband. Okay, Next question. What if they don't want to give you what you want, like an allergy shot? Okay. So you go into the doctor and you're requesting an allergy shot, right? So let's say you have the symptoms of a runny nose, congestion, scratchy throat, dry eyes. So we're going to list out the symptoms, right? Dry eyes, runny nose, congestion, scratchy throat. Throat. So with all of those, we can come to the conclusion that we're going to put this as a fact that you have allergies. Okay. And then you go and get a doctor's appointment because you want to get an allergy shot. So you have a doctor's appointment on Monday. Okay. Now, did you already have the appointment? I'm assuming you already had the appointment since you said you didn't get what you want. Okay, so maybe let's say you had doctor's appointment on Monday. You had your doctor's appointment on Monday and no allergy shot. Okay, they said no. Okay, didn't have the appointment yet. Okay, so you have a doctor's appointment on Monday. Go with that one. Okay, you have your doctor's appointment on Monday. You have the thought that they won't give me what I want, right? I won't get what I need. And you feel frustrated. And you, for one, think about it probably way more than you need to, right? This hasn't happened yet, but in your mind, it already has. You ruminate on them not giving you a shot. Then you spiral and you think of all the ways that they have failed you in the past, right? On the bad doctors that you've had. You then try to distract yourself, right? Because you're very frustrated. You probably try to distract yourself and you probably scroll on social media, scroll on your phone, you drink pop, you probably maybe watch more TV than you normally would, right? Because you feel so frustrated. You feel anxious about it, maybe, but mostly frustrated. Okay. And your result is you aren't giving yourself what you need. Okay. Right? Because drinking pop, scrolling on your phone, watching TV, I guarantee you're not drinking enough water. Not praying about it, not asking God to help you through the doctor's appointment, right? All the things. You're not giving yourself what you need. Okay. And the funny part is you haven't even had the appointment yet. This hasn't even happened yet. And you're already like spiraling out of control by it, right? So, same circumstance. So, we want a different thought going in. Okay. So, first, I would say, like, how do you want to feel when you go to the doctor? Do you want to feel acceptance of whatever happens? Do you want to feel calm? Do you want to feel let's see, just peace? I mean, peace might be okay, empowered. So you want to feel empowered. And so I've gotten these allergy shots before. It's like a steroid shot, and it does help, right? And so you know that. You know that it will help you. You know going in, that's what I need. That's what I want. But they're not going to give it to me. Okay. So, I mean, you could just go off the bat with like a basic, like, I know what I need. I know my body best. Anything that makes you feel empowered, right? I know my body. I know what I need. Okay. Then you're going to go into the appointment and you're going to be pleasant, but feeling empowered, you kind of like, for me, when I have the empowered feeling, I feel a little bit like, no, like they can't stop me. I got this. Like, I know what I need. I know how to ask for it. Okay. And again, that doesn't mean like you're mean about it, but I will be cheerful. Oh, all those are feelings. Okay. I will be direct. Be direct in asking for a shot. If they do say no, I will just like, why? Why not? Right? Like, because I know what I need. Maybe ask the question. You know, you do know your body, right? Like we often get into the appointment in the clinic and we get a little off track. We get so focused on what we think's going to happen or how judged that we feel that we forget the simple fact that we do know our bodies. We know what's best for ourselves. We also can refuse things. So I know in this case, like you want the allergy shot, but if you're going in and they're saying, well, just try Zyrtec, just try a over-the-counter allergy pill. You know, no, I've already tried that. Okay. So I like to say is you give yourself permission to say no. They know I've already tried that. I've tried that for 4 weeks and my symptoms aren't getting better. I need something stronger. If you won't give this to me, can you recommend something else? Like this is not cutting it. Okay. So just give yourself permission to, I know my body. I know what I need. I've gotten this in the past. No, I don't need that allergy pill. I need this shot. Okay. And you stand up for yourself, right? And that's your result. And a lot of times we go in and we want to feel confident, but then when we get in there and they start questioning things or pushing things on us, for me, I go into like kind of a mousy energy where it's like, okay, maybe they know best. I guess they're the expert. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to rock the boat, right? I just kind of get timid and shy. But if you go in just and you keep practicing this thought, I know what I need. I know what I need. Okay, that really has helped me go from somebody who couldn't stop the immunizations, all the immunizations that her daughter got, to somebody who now when I go in, I'm like, no, no, we don't get immunizations here. We go through city county health because it's cheaper for us. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I always make it up to be a bigger deal in my mind than it is. Okay. So I hope that answered that question. I'm going to go to the next one. Okay. This one happened to me the other day as well. So teenage daughter needs your physical, right? Maybe she's going to be in sports. Maybe it's just time for a checkup. And you panic, right? Because for me, I've heard things in the news. I always like hear all these things. Okay. So I'm afraid that for one, they're going to kick me out of the room. Okay. Because teenagers now, even though they're not old enough to vote, they're not old enough to smoke, um, all the things. If they want birth control and they're a minor, they don't have to tell you. They don't have to, you don't have to have that knowledge as their parent, as the adult. And so when I brought in my teenage daughter, so she's 13, when I brought her in to go get her physical for sports, I was panicked. I'm like, they're going to kick me out of the room. She's going to be in there by herself. They're going to question her about like when was her last period. And like, I don't know if she knows that. Like I tell her to keep track, but she probably doesn't keep track of it. They're going to push birth control on her. They're going to ask her how many, like if she's had oral sex or anything like that. And like, she doesn't know what that is. So I was freaking out, right? And my biggest fear was that they were going to kick me out of the room and that she was going to be there by herself. Okay. And underneath that, I didn't want her to feel pressured because just like I said in the beginning, I have felt pressured so many times from healthcare workers. And I am a healthcare worker. I have the knowledge and I still feel pressured. I feel bullied and I feel judged. Okay. So I don't want that for my daughter. I'm trying to protect her. I don't want her to have to feel those things. And so ultimately, all of that means I'm failing her as a mom, right? Like I'm panicking. I'm failing her. Like I haven't prepared her. She'll be pressured, right? And so my thought then is she'll be pressured. And so on the car ride into town, I ran through quickly like the sex talk again. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we better talk about this. Like they're gonna ask when your last period was, and they might talk to you about birth control and like all the things. Okay. And and I was like rattling off all these things. And finally she's like, okay, mom, can we stop talking about this now? And it's so funny because I know this work. I know I can manage my mind around it, right? But it takes practice. And so the result was she didn't feel pressured by the doctor. She felt pressured by me. And we went to the doctor's appointment and it was perfectly fine. The doctor, like, she's a nurse assistant or physician assistant. Anyway, um, nurse practitioner, I mean, or so we went and she's great. We've had her for a checkup or two before. She's not our primary doctor, but she came in and she's holding a peacock feather and she hands it to my daughter. She's like, here, this is for you. And here she's a peacock farmer. I don't know if that's what they're called, but she has peacocks, guinea hens, like all these birds. And she's like, every once in a while I find a really good peacock feather from the males. And so she's like, I thought you should have it. And it was, I mean, it was great. It was just laid back. When she had her do her physical, like she listened to her lungs and she had her like squat down and try to walk as she was squatting. Like this physician assistant like did it with her. And I was like, oh, I used to be able to do it. I don't know if I can, right? It was totally fine. But I had freaked myself out so much about it ahead of time that I was acting like a crazy, like nervous, anxious person that I was. So with that, okay, with teenage daughters and physicals. So again, write a thought download, like I showed you on the first sheet. Write down everything, right? And then pick out the facts. The facts are they have an appointment coming up. Okay. You also can talk to your daughter about that they can refuse. They don't have to ask you to leave the room. If they say, okay, like we're going to have your mom leave now, your daughter can say, no, I want her to stay in here. Okay. They're not going to listen to that from you. I mean, some might, but because again, and I understand this, like there are cases where kids are maybe abused or like they want to have them in the room alone to understand and assess the situation away from the adult um influence. And so I understand that, right? But it doesn't feel good when it's your children and when they're the ones that are being removed from you and there's a wall between you. And so just to tell any of your kids, when we go to the doctors, like just remember you can refuse anything. Okay? Refuse anything. If you don't want me to leave, you can refuse. If you don't want the information about the HPV vaccine, you can refuse. If you're not sure about something and yeah, you want me to leave the room because you want to ask some questions, like ask some questions. If they're like, oh, well, sure, we'll give you this and that, like ask, what are the side effects? What does this really treat? A lot of times doctors push for birth control for young women because they get their period, they have cramps, they're having heavy cycles, and birth control won't actually treat that. It'll help with some of the symptoms, but there might be an underlying issue that is going untreated that they're missing because everybody just slaps birth control on it, right? They put a band-aid on it instead of looking at the wound underneath. And so encourage your daughters to speak up and just say, no, I don't want birth control. I just really am wondering if there's anything to help me naturally or organically, or maybe just a med just for that can help me with like cramps because they are really bad, right? And they'll probably suggest Tylenol or Midol or something like that. But again, you know your daughter, you know them. And if you go in with that empowered thought, I know them, then you go in with that belief and that feeling, and then your actions will follow. Okay. Afterwards, if all they prescribed was birth control, you're going to be like, okay, well, I think there's something else going on. We're going to go get a second opinion. Okay. Or there's so many things online now. Like for me personally, like I live in a very rural area and I don't have a lot of options for physicians, and especially Catholic physicians. And but there are online options. Okay. I also saw something the other day that somebody was like, well, my doctor's always pushing birth control because they have I can't remember what it's called now. PPOS. Anyway, it's like you have really heavy periods, right? And so they're always pushing birth control, but it goes against my faith, and so I don't want it. But is there anything else? Like it really is truly miserable. And there are places out there now that they do a lot of research on it. They try to get the root of the problem and not just put birth control on it. A lot of times switching up your diet, exercise, and maybe you're doing all those things, right? I also saw where a person commented and they were like, oh, my sister has that. And instead of just getting birth control, they take separately like all of the hormones that go into birth control. They take just the few that they need to help regulate their cycle instead of getting birth control that then prevents pregnancy. They just take the hormone things to help regulate their hormones in their body. Okay. And if you're not sure about that, you can always talk with your priest and see what he says and kind of like the lines for that, because I'm not 100% positive on all of that. So I think that's all the questions. I hope this was helpful. I hope it helps you feel a little bit more empowered when you go to the doctor. Just to remember that you can say no, you can refuse treatments, your daughter can refuse to have you leave the room. Same with when you go to the dentist. A lot of places now, when they go to the dentist, like they ask, or they don't really want the parents going back with the child. And I can see, again, logically, I understand why, but when it's my child, oh, that makes me anxious. That makes me nervous, right? Like lots of times now they'll do like the bite wing x-rays, and then they want the panoramic view. And I understand the panoramic view gives you more details and all that, but it's expensive. And we pay out of pocket for our dental insurance. So I get nervous when my kids go back there and they might not know to refuse or say, no, we don't want that today. And then they'll do all these x-rays and stuff, and we'll be paying $600 for one child to have a dental visit. And right. So like, just again, you can say, no, you can encourage them to be like, no, I want my mom with me, or just no, like, no, I'm going to be coming back today. Like we can say those things. And the only thing that happens and stands in between our way is a little bit of uncomfortable confrontation, a little bit of a comfortable feeling to say, no, I'm coming back with my child. No, I'm going to be doing this. No, we're refusing that. No, we don't want that today. Okay. So just remember, you can refuse any service at any time. And a lot of places will use different wording to try to persuade you and make it sound like you have to do these things. So I also encourage you to, again, get curious and say, I'm learning my rights. I'm learning what healthcare in my state means. Okay. And then go look up your laws and regulations in your state. Again, speak with your priest so you know morally what to do. And for most of you, this is the information you need, right? You need to feel a little bit empowered. But some of you might struggle with chronic illness or children that have chronic issues, and that you are in the doctors a lot. Maybe you have multiple pregnancies. Maybe you've had a lot of miscarriages. And so what coaching does for you is it's still going to be hard, right? All of these things are going to be hard. But what coaching does is it really goes from being unbearable to bearable. Okay. So I encourage you to book a free consult call with me. You can book that. I'll put that in the link below. But you can go to catholicnursecoach.com and sign up for a free consult call with me. And again, like the difference is from crushing. It feels overwhelming and I can't handle this. There's so many different diagnoses. There's so many appointments. I feel like nobody understands me when I go. To coaching helps bridge the gap to make things more bearable for you. Okay. Again, it's still going to be hard, but it goes from being crushing to being bearable. So go check it out, catholicnursecoach.com. And since I don't have any more questions, we're going to close a little bit early. I always leave an hour, but since we got it covered, I think we're good. So always reach out to me if you have any questions. You can email me at catholicnursecoach@outlook.com. I'm always willing to help women walk through any situation like, hey, I have this upcoming appointment. A lot of times it is a little bit easier face-to-face, so you can always book a consult call for that. So again, I won't give you medical advice, but I can walk you through your feelings that are coming up, why you feel trapped, why you feel stuck. Okay. catholicnursecoach.com. I'm praying for you and let's go change our world.